so I take this ambulance to the hospital, which cost a pretty penny, and so then I finally get out of the hospital about an hour and a half before the morning skate. So now I got to go to the morning skate. But so now I get out of the hospital and I call an Uber, and then I look and I realize that the hospital is like honestly 2.5 blocks from my hotel. So I got to walk to the emergency room. And so I just walked back from the hospital to my hotel, and of course that bill came in the mail a couple days later. So yeah, that was a fun night.
Yeah, I remember something happened where I didn't know you'd been to the hospital the night before until we were at morning skate. I was like, wait, I left you at like 11 o'clock at night. What the hell could you do after 11 o'clock?
Welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Mike Russo, Anthony LaPanta, coming to you from a beautiful morning in Dallas, Texas. We're outside a Starbucks in a courtyard right downtown. And Anthony, so I walk up and you're drinking a giant coffee. And then I order my coffee in this Starbucks. And then we're about to start the show and you're like, wait, I'm waiting for my Americano. And I'm like, wait, am I imagining or were you just drinking a coffee? So you are kind of... Like, people look at me as like, I'm nuts. But you ordered a coffee on the way here, drank it, and then ordered an Americano for the show, all within probably about 20 minutes of each other.
That's accurate. And, yes, I do. Normally, I'll have an iced coffee in the morning on my way to wherever I'm going, either a nitro cold brew, or actually now I've been drinking this. Have you tried their protein cold foam?
No, I haven't. I've heard mixed reviews.
I like it, and I like the extra protein. So I had one of those that I ordered on my walk over here. And then when I thought about it for a minute and thought, all right, now I've got an hour to sit here and chat, I might want a coffee for the show. So I ordered a second one. It's a very busy Starbucks here. It's one of the cooler Starbucks on the NHL circuit, but they have all the, like, fancy pour-over coffees
like
and a few.
Tubes.
They do. It's kind of a cool setup and a great little courtyard here to do the show. We apologize for some of the morning traffic noise in Dallas, but I love this area. This uptown area in Dallas is one of my favorite stops on the league. I just love it here.
Yeah, they used to call this like a Starbucks Reserve, but I think it's now just a normal Starbucks, right? Like when we first started coming here, it was like...
They had a bunch of the trial things in there, and it was kind of cool, but it still has a cool vibe to it.
Yeah, no doubt.
But this whole area doesn't. It's supposed to be 90 today here.
I know. I got here yesterday. I actually missed the Wild game, and it was super hot yesterday as well. And we'll talk about the Wild game. Our next live show is October 27th at Tuttle's, so come on out for that. That'll be a fun one. Always fun to get out there. October 27th at Tuttle's, and then we'll have, I think, one live show in November. Although don't quote me on that. I got
So you had to watch the game on TV last night.
Even worse, I had to watch it on my phone.
Oh, nice.
So I went to Texas Live, which is by the football stadium and the new Rangers ballpark, which is right across the street from the old Rangers ballpark, which I thought was a palace and not very old. So just like Atlanta,
I love
like
the
I remember
ballpark.
Turner Field was awesome, but they didn't like the location, so they just built another ballpark, in Cobb County. And it's kind of same thing here. They got this. Apparently, it was just ridiculously hot. So they had to build one with a retractable roof, so it's right across the street. So I went to that Texas Live. They didn't have the game. So then I just found another restaurant, and they didn't have the game. So I just started watching on my phone. Next thing I know, I watched it in my hotel room the last two periods. So I didn't get, a full appreciation, I guess, of what happened with the comeback by the LA Kings. What did happen that allowed them to come back in that game? Because the Wild, even through their power play was unbelievable. Even strength, they weren't creating a ton in the first period. Then the Hartman overturned goal, then it seemed to flip.
Well, there's a lot there. I was more curious what you thought of the broadcast.
I thought it was great, actually. I thought Stalock was awesome. I listened to it. I heard it, too. I thought Stalock brings a different perspective. Like, it's kind of neat. You got Carter and you got Walsey, and then you got Stalock now that brings this goalie perspective, and just hearing him talk about just the puck handling of both goalies and seeing through traffic and all that stuff from both Kemper and Wallstedt last night, I thought it was good.
Yeah, and there was some stuff there. There was a lot of stuff about Jesper Wallstedt, and I thought this was a big game for him with trying to put last year behind him and now your first regular season start and handling some of the mental challenges. And it was interesting because we were talking about, as a goaltender, how you have to be able to learn to deal with that. And Al was talking about it from season to season, from month to month. And I said, well, even within a game, there's going to be, and last night was a great example of that. Wallstedt, everything was going great for a couple periods with a lead. Wasn't really tested much during the first two periods, but was good when he was. And then all of a sudden in the third period, I don't know that I'd say that really anything that happened was something where you'd fault the goaltender. Sure, he would have loved to have had one of them back, but then you have to be able to put that behind you. Now we're in overtime, and he came up big in the OT. On the shorthanded situation, he was big, and then stopped all four in the shootouts. And it was great to see his reaction. He was pumped up, and with good reason. He was excited about it. And a first home win for him. I thought it was a really important win for Wallstedt. And Al brought a lot of that. And then within the actual game itself, I thought he was really good with some of the analysis from a goaltender's perspective.
And the other thing with Al also is he was such an incredibly good puck handling goalie that it was really good to hear
that.
Yeah,
right?
it was good to hear his perspective there.
And the challenge, I think, for goaltenders is that they see the game from a different angle than everybody else, but you have to be able to also analyze the other parts of the game. And I thought Al did a pretty good job of this. This was his first regular season show with us. He's done some regular season NHL games with the guys in San Jose with Dan Ruzanowski on the radio, and I know he's got I think he has a trip with them coming up where he was telling me his schedule last night, and I wasn't totally locked in because I didn't really know.
San Jose.
Yeah, I didn't really know our schedule when we got back from this trip, but I think he's going on a trip with San Jose and then flying with the Sharks back to Minnesota. They must come to Minnesota.
Yes, I think they do.
So right after this road trip, I believe. So it's kind of weird how he'll be flying into Minnesota to do Minnesota shows on the Sharks charter.
That's pretty cool. And then Carter's on this trip?
No, Lou Nanny's on this trip.
Oh, Lou Nanny's on this trip. No wonder he was...
Louis is going to meet us in Washington.
Okay.
Tonight's
no wonder
game in
he's
Dallas.
Been asking me nonstop if I was on this trip.
Yeah, we've... He's the game in Dallas is a national TV game, so I'm just watching the game tonight here. But then Louis is joining us in Washington, and he's got Washington, Philadelphia, New York, New Jersey. We've got reservations on the Upper East Side in New York on Sunday.
Awesome.
He's got some place in D.C. The only thing that's disappointing is we don't get an off night in Philly. There's a couple spots that I really like that we've gone to in Philadelphia that we'll miss. But it's
one of them put me in the hospital.
That's right. We went to the Grand Cafe L'Aquila.
Yes.
And you drank too much coffee or something.
Yes.
Had to go to the emergency room. I mean,
by ambulance.
Having coffee after dinner is...
I walked up to the bellman at like 2 a.m. I'm like, I think I'm having a heart attack. And he's like, sit down. And then next thing I know, an ambulance is here. Here's the best part of that story. This is only like 2 or 3 years ago. So I take this ambulance to the hospital, which cost a pretty penny. And so then I finally get out of the hospital about an hour and a half before the morning skate. So now I got to go to the morning skate. But so now I get out of the hospital and I call an Uber, and then I look and I realize that the hospital is like honestly 2.5 blocks from my hotel. So I got to walk to the emergency room. And so I just walked back from the hospital to my hotel, and of course that bill came in the mail a couple days later. So that was a fun night.
Yeah, I remember something happened where I didn't know you'd been to the hospital the night before until we were at morning skate. I was like, wait, I left you at like 11 o'clock at night. What the hell could you do after 11 o'clock?
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was that same trip or another trip, but it's Philly. But Sarah McClellan was like deathly sick there. I think it was the same time. So anyway, Philly is I'm skipping the Philly trip. Got a funny text the other day from Margot that said to me, and I didn't know if this was more of a shot at me or a shot at you, but she said to me, it seems like Anthony's bothering you more than normal. Is there anything I could do? And I just basically go, no, I can't even remember what I replied. I'm like, no, a leopard doesn't change its spots or something. I don't think there's anything you can do at this point. But I almost thought it might have been like her subtle way of letting me know you're annoying me by how mean you're being to Anthony on the pod, and you need to stop it. That's the way I construed it, but maybe it wasn't that.
I don't know. She strangely didn't mention it to me.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to be super nice to you on this pod.
Well,
I'm not going to get agitated about anything.
Yeah, I appreciate
Second line
that.
wingers.
This will be a fun pod then.
Yep, exactly.
My guess would be, just based on 35 years with Margot, that it was at least partially directed at me.
Right. That maybe she was pissing you off, and she realized maybe I should reach out for some support. So, all right. Or that you were pissing her off, I should say. All right. So
I'm good to know she's at least looking out for me a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk. I mean, it's a very small sample size. Obviously, they're 2-1. Their power play has been unbelievable right now. 8 power play goals. And what's funny is inside the games and like those first couple in St. Louis, not very good. Those first couple against Columbus, not very good. Disappointing loss to Columbus. It felt like Columbus was doing everything to give the Wild the game, and they just got, I think, which sometimes you see early in the season, they got so, over-aggressive to score goals that they forgot about defending and got way too loose. Gus wasn't great. And then last night they blew the 3-0 lead, but they come away with 2 points. And look, I'm not saying all is, roses and rainbows and all that from getting the 2 points yesterday, because as we saw last year, you don't want to be giving free points away to your conference competitors. But what do you take right now of the 3 games that we've seen?
Well, there's a lot. And let's start with the power play, because this is one that I've been thinking a lot about. We've been talking about power plays as that the Wild have the skill to have a top-end power play. I threw out the number that I think they have the skill to be a top 5 to 8 power play in the league, 25-ish%. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes people lose sight of that when they think, the power play looked like crap. Even the best ones go 1 for 4.
Right.
And often, 1 or 2 of the 3 that they miss they'll never get situated. And it's the same for every team in the league, but it's kind of like goaltending, where people only watch their own team's power play. So every time they have a power play where they don't score, they think, well, they couldn't even get the puck in the zone. They couldn't shoot. They wouldn't shoot it when they got it. And so I think sometimes that's just the nature of power plays, is that if you go 1 for 4, or even in the Wild's case the other night when they scored 4, they went 4 for 8. Well, yeah, a couple of them come up empty, but then even the best ones come up empty. And oftentimes when they come up empty, it's because you lose a face-off, you can't get it back in the zone cleanly. But look at it from the other side, and when your team is killing a power play, so many times like you disrupt 2 or 3 zone entries and it looks like an unbelievable kill, and that's all it takes sometimes. So I think it is just the nature of power plays, where sometimes when they miss, they can sometimes look really bad, but it's not time to panic and say, well, the power play was terrible. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, then we've talked about that power plays can really bail a team out. So they haven't scored an even strength goal in 2 games.
Right.
And yet they've won 1 and lost 1. And I think that's what a power play can do for you, and shouldn't be overlooked that the penalty kill's been really good too. So and even though there was a power play goal scored by the Kings in the game last night, they killed 2 out of 3, including a 3-on-4 in overtime that allowed them to get to the shootout. So I think the power play's been terrific. I think Gus was really off in that Columbus game more than maybe some of the numbers. Yes, they got a little loose, but when you look at some of the analytics, I mean, it was like 4 goals more than expected that were allowed by the Wild in that game.
Yeah.
And
when you have 52 shots, it means you have the puck a lot. And you're not. You can't lose that game. And
52 shots, 80-plus attempts, and yet didn't score an even strength goal. So I think the Wild did enough offensively in that game. I did think they got a little bit loose defensively, but I think it was more that And that was one of the changes made before Game 3. I thought it was a great move by John Hines to rearrange his D pairings. And I know I've talked before about that eventually where this team will get is Zeev Buium in the top 4 and Middleton on the third set. But I don't think they're there yet. And Buium, I think, got exposed a little bit in that Columbus game where partially because of power plays and then partially because he's playing with Jared Spurgeon, he's playing 24, 25 minutes. And I just don't know that he's there yet. He will be. This is a top 4 defenseman with incredible offensive skill, but not yet. And I thought Jake Middleton looked like he was a little bit lost in the Columbus game, maybe mentally because all of a sudden a guy normally playing 22, 23 minutes was playing 14. And so putting those guys back together in the LA game, I think, helped solidify things. And I thought for 2 periods, Minnesota really defended well against the Kings. And the Kings have some skill. They got 1 power play goal, 1 6-on-5 goal. So it isn't like they were all over the Wild in that period. I think with about 3 or 4 minutes left in the game, the shots were like 8-3 in the third. It isn't like they were 16 shots and all over the Wild, but they scored a power play goal and they scored a 6-on-5 goal. And that's teams are going to do that sometimes.
Right. By the way, do you like how I put us under the flight path of Love Field right here?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Although I think if we
knowing
did it,
you're probably like, now that's the plane going to New York. That's the United
I'm
flight
on Flight
that goes
Radar
to,
right now.
Yeah.
As you talked, I was like going through Flight Radar. I love that. That's my favorite thing to do is like figure out where planes are going. It's funny how you knew that. But I think if we were in your courtyard, we'd still be over the flight path. Because
a little bit. There is a quiet courtyard. This is one of my favorite hotels in the league in Dallas here, and there's a little shopping area attached. There's 2 hotels right next to each other that share a parking lot, and then on the other side there's a little shopping area. There's a Capitol Grill, but then a few shops, and the courtyard in there is this. It's really a great.
Do you remember?
setup.
Was it you that we were sitting out in that courtyard with Greenlay once, and 1 a.m. and Lamar Odom and one of the Kardashians walked out of one of the restaurants?
It could be. I don't remember that part, but I do remember sitting in the courtyard with Greenlake because I remember a night we sat outside of, there's a sushi, the Nobu place right there, and we sat out in the back and had a cigar in this courtyard.
That was the night, I think.
That was one
Nobu.
of the... Yeah, it's funny how the celebrity sightings didn't really matter much to me, but I do remember we had a couple nights out there early in the early years I was traveling where we sat in that courtyard with a cigar, but it is funny, everybody just assumes, Dallas, you're in the tropics. We've been down here when it's been 20 degrees.
No,
too.
I know. There's ice storms down here. It's all sorts of stuff.
Well, I remember last year on our way back, would have been in February, coming back from Costa Rica last year. We stopped in Dallas. And our flight to Minnesota actually got canceled because it was too cold in Dallas. And so but our bags made it somehow. I don't know how that worked. Our bags got on a different flight. So Margot and I were stuck in Dallas with no clothes. We got here at 7 o'clock at night, and they couldn't get us on a flight the next day till 8 o'clock at night. So we had 24 hours in Dallas. It was 14 degrees outside, and all we had were shorts and a T-shirt because we were expecting to be on a flight for the entire trip back to Minnesota. And I was like, Margot, this is such a great area, but unfortunately all we have are shorts and a T-shirt, and it's an ice storm outside, so I don't think we'll be going anywhere.
That reminds me of the other time I wound up in the hospital when I flew from Costa Rica to Vegas through Atlanta, and I thought I had deep vein thrombosis.
That's right. You had the sore calf.
Yeah, that was an expensive one, too. We'll be right back on Worst Seats in the House. Trust me, we are all excited that hockey season is here. If you're a hockey fan, that means you enjoy the colder weather too. Now that hockey season is here, that means furnace season is starting up as well. I love the fact that Aquarius Home Services is my go-to for anything to do with my HVAC system. Tune-ups, repairs, replacement, energy-efficient solutions, air purification, humidifiers, they do it all. They make sure the air in my home is the best it can be. In fact, Nick were at my home last month doing my furnace tune-up. And don't forget, hockey season usually means cold and flu season, so that air purification system is pretty key right now. Take my advice and check out Aquarius Home Services. Right now, they have a crazy good deal. A furnace tune-up for only $29. You heard that right. Only $29 to get your furnace checked out before the real cold weather hits. A trained tech gives your system a thorough evaluation. They'll go over all the findings with you. And trust me, finding little problems before they become big problems can save you big time. That saves you time, money, and headaches. Get ready for winter and schedule your tune-up at AquariusHomeservices.com. That's AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended. And don't forget to mention that Russo sent you.
Deer hunting season is here, and it's time to own your odds with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. With the Hunt app, you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, tracks, and much more, all at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt. That's onxmaps.com/hunt to sign up today.
Hey, Mark Rosen here for Stretch Lab. I had my introductory first stretch when I was visiting my relatives in New Jersey. I went to the local Stretch Lab there for my 50-minute session. I felt so good afterwards. And when I came back, I immediately called that Stretch Lab in Eden Prairie. They have locations all over the Twin Cities where my nephew first signed up. I've been hooked ever since. There are locations I mentioned throughout the Twin City area, but I stuck with my Tuesday morning appointment with Jason to get my 50-minute stretch in as part of my schedule. It's like a meditation session. He stretches out my legs, my hips, my back, my neck, my traps, all of it. And I take some deep breaths and I feel like a new man every single time I leave. My nephew's in his late 20s. I'm a little bit older, but it doesn't matter. Stretching is so important in our daily routine. Having an expert do the work is the only way to go. My advice, give Stretch Lab a chance to improve your overall health. Check out a location near you.
Hey, this is Randy Shaver. Along with Kevin Gorg, we host the show Fantasy Huddle on Talk North. Each week, we're going to break down the matchups for the NFL season and try to give you the best chance to win your fantasy football games each and every week. Join us for Fantasy Huddle on Talk North.
Back here, worst seats in the house. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta, coming to you live from Dallas. October 27th is our next live show at Tuttle's. Let's talk about the second line, Anthony. We both felt actually it was just a matter of time. It almost felt, this is the way I almost took it, okay? And I know this is going to almost make me sound like the most pompous person ever, but so we know that Ogren and Yurov didn't earn that spot, quote unquote, in training camp. And so I think you and I both thought throughout camp that the process of elimination, they were going to go back to the old well and throw Johansson there. But I almost feel like at the very beginning, because they thought I would have a meltdown, they're like, well, we'll throw Foligno there at first for 2 games. And we just knew eventually it would get back to Johansson. And I think that right now, I mean, until Yurov or Ogren show it, I actually am with you. Like I've been disappointed watching Ogren. And and everybody that listens to this pod knows how my battles with you on that one. But I actually think that Johansson is the one that has to fit there right now. But a lot of people are asking, like, we're focusing so much on the left wing on that line. What about the right wing? Are you getting concerned of Tarasenko at even strength? He has 3 power play assists, but at even strength, not a lot.
Well, I think that line was lacking, and the move Hines made to go to Johansson from Foligno, I think did 2 things. Number one, it made a third line that makes some sense with Foligno, Trenyan, and Hartman, where I think it's when Foligno's game is at its best, it's simple and it's physical and it's straight lines and it's fast, and I thought that line was terrific for Minnesota last night. And even though they don't figure on the score sheet, they spent a lot of time in the offensive zone. And I think that could be a line that now you use as not a shutdown line, but a line you're certainly not afraid to have them on the ice against scorers. But I think that Tarasenko needs somebody else to drive the line. And not that Johansson is a guy that drives a line, but his speed does change a line. And I thought they were better last night. And Tarasenko was better last night. But, let's keep in mind, this is a spot that will be, when Matt Zuccarello comes back, he's a top 6 forward somewhere, somehow. And let's assume that he fits, let's say he fits with Rossi and Kaprizov. Well, that puts Matt Boldy on that line. Or it puts Zuccarello on that line with now Tarasenko and Eriksson Ek. One way or the other, you're going to have another guy on that line that creates more. And Tarasenko hasn't shown up much 5-on-5 yet, but I do think part of that was the line just seemed off. And I thought they were better last night. Johansson and the speed that he brings with getting pucks into the zone, with driving the defense back as they enter the zone, all of that made the line look a little better. And Tarasenko did have a couple chances, but the line has to score.
Yeah.
Because Rossi-Boldy, Kaprizov, well, they have scored so far every night. They're not going to score every night, and they're not going to score 3 points a guy each night.
Right.
And somehow they got to get some supplemental scoring.
Yeah, and that's how I feel. And I think this road trip, a 5-gamer that starts tonight in Dallas, is going to be really indicative on how long you could keep Rossi-Boldy and Kaprizov together on the road. Because if other teams, these 5 teams who could all defend, Dallas, Washington, Philly, Jersey, and the Rangers, if they only have to worry about checking one line, I think it's going to be a tough road trip for the Wild. So they got to get some production from the second line. I will say the one thing that Johansson can do that is going to help Tarasenko is he could deliver the puck. I mean, we saw that. Remember the unbelievable overtime goal that he made to Kaprizov last year? We saw in the first game his pass to Hartman on the drive for his first goal.
He had one in last night's game to Tarasenko that just missed because it hit a skate on the way where he tried to saucer it across. And if it doesn't hit the skate of a down LA defenseman and pop up just a little bit, Tarasenko has not an easy tap in because he still would have had to deflect it out of the air, but it was at least a potential play. And the other thing Johansson brings is the speed coming back the other way. He's a responsible player, and that's why the coaching staff loves him. It's why they want to bring him back, and it's why they trust him. But yeah, at some point, whether it's when Zuccarello comes back or at some point before that, if one of the young guys starts to elevate their game, there's no doubt that the team would be better if you had a 50 or 60 point guy on that wing, and Johansson's not that, but right now he's their best option. And I think it makes the Foligno, Trenyon, Hartman line make sense. And then it also, I thought the change to bring Yurov back in, and Hunter Haight was fine, but I thought the fourth line looked better last night than they had looked in the first 2 games. And you could see it because Hines went to them a couple times in the game where in the first 2 games you could tell we didn't see much of the fourth line for long stretches. And in last night's game, even right after an LA goal, offensive zone faceoff, and the fourth line was on the ice. And I thought this tells you a little bit that he's trusting these guys a little bit more.
And I think he was trying to get them a little more ice time because they were in the first period didn't get a ton just because of the power plays. Yurov, I thought, looked really good for his first game yesterday. I think he's going to get better and better. He did what I liked about him that was a good step is his compete and his grit last night, which is the one areas where they're trying to get him to get acclimated to the National Hockey League. So we'll see where that goes. This, as I mentioned, this is the beginning of a 5-game trip. I would think that we're going to see some shuffling of some players if the Wild get out of this game healthy. And one guy that I could see going to Iowa right off the hop is David Jiricek. And then maybe even because you're going to, Iowa's off to an 0-2 start. I think they want to help them. But maybe if Hunter Haight's not going to be in the lineup, maybe you flip him with a Pitlick or an Ube Kubel, and you get Hunter Haight down there. So I think Jiricek, if the Wild get out of this game healthy tonight, is going to be sent down. And I think he should, Anthony. And I know that's going to probably create mental gymnastics for him. But right now, he is not one of the top 6 defensemen on this team if they're going to play Bogosian. And he just continues to make the same mistakes that he made throughout training camp. He has a lot of good in him. He's got a lot of raw skill, but they've really got to get him playing and work out the kinks down there. You can't really afford it on this trip. And we saw in that St. Louis game, he makes 3 plays a game.
The other thing that I think it's twofold. I think you're exactly right. And right now, Bogosian is a more dependable defenseman than him. Jiricek has a bright future. This is similar to the discussion we've had with the forwards. That yes, Jiricek's a part of the future here. Bogosian is not really, but right now Bogosian's better. But I think the bigger thing is that by moving Zeev Buium down in the lineup, which they feel they have to do, he's going to get his ice time, but it's going to be on the power play. you can't have a third set that's Buyem and Jiricek.
Yeah.
You just can't.
No way.
So Buyem needs a veteran presence to play with him. It's better to have him with Bogosian on that third pair. And unfortunately, the repercussion of that means that Jiricek let's say Buyem had worked out playing with Spurgeon. Now you could potentially use Jiricek on a third pair with Bogosian from time to time, or with Middleton, or whatever it might be. But when it's Zeev Buyem on that third set, and you need Buyem for your power play, so he's not coming out of the lineup. That's it's just the reality of the way the roster is built right now.
I still think that Jiricek has the ability to be a really good player. I just think that, he's got there are these just little habits that he does that are huge, big event moments in games.
In St. Louis, I know people will look at it and say, well, wait a minute, he was a +3 in St. Louis. And analytically, he and Bogosian were a good pair in that game. Their numbers were good. Their attempts were good. The expected goals for were good. But the eye test also said he got away with probably 3 or 4 mistakes that St. Louis just didn't cash in on.
Just think of this, the one turnover that he had, which was just massive to Robert Thomas. Thomas doesn't even get a shot or attempt off, so it doesn't even register in the analytics of Jiricek. Same thing on the one where he got walked at the blue line. He takes the penalty. There's no shot attempt. So that this type of stuff is the stuff that you see sometimes with the eye test that you don't see when you look at naturalstattrick.com or Evolving Hockey or something.
Well, that's why there's a place for analytics, and I love them. I like to look at them, but it has to be a combination of numbers and then seeing what you see, because there are times where the numbers tell part of the story, but the game tells you something else. And it's one of the things I've felt the Wild have been good at with using analytics over the last few years. But the beauty of their analytics guy in Matt Sells, that was the guy that was their lead in all of this stuff, was that he also was a hockey guy, and that's not always the case.
Right. And Matt Sells is now, even though he has a good pulse still on the analytics of the team, he's also assistant GM and their chief contract negotiator. And the Wild, by the way, have really in the last couple of years added to that department. I know for a long time that the Wild were sort of a one-man show, but they have added support to that, and they've really started to invest in that area, even though maybe we haven't written a bunch of articles on it, or that's something that's not known by the average fan. Brock Faber, Anthony, I think has gotten off to a real slow start. I'm not talking offensively. As I wrote in that story right before the season, that's not the area where he can help this team the most, especially when you have a Zeev Buyem in the lineup and he's not on the power play in Brock. But defensively, he just hasn't been as sharp yet in these first 3 games. Are you worried at all, or no?
No, not worried. I think I agree with you. I don't think he's been as sharp. And I think he didn't get a chance to play with Brodin a ton during training camp and during the preseason, because Brodin was hurt and not in the lineup. So really, when you think about it, these guys are 2 games. Brodin didn't play on opening night, so they've only played together for 2 games. And I'd say give it another week before it's time to panic.
Then we can make the next podcast the title of the show, Time to Panic.
Right. I'll have to do an emergency solo pod to say no more panic needed.
Goaltending we talked about. Anything else we should grab? And before we get to Twitter questions, I also want to talk to you in the next segment about the reunion that the Wild had the other day with bringing back Jacques and Mario and Mike Ramsey, Bob Mason, and Doug Risebrough.
Not really, other than that I just think it's these early games.
Well, you know what we haven't talked about, actually, is just Kaprizov and Boldy.
Right, they've been good. And Marco Rossi, to be honest.
But Kaprizov and Boldy are on another level right now.
They are, but the guy that I think, and I don't really understand why, but Rossi continues to get overlooked on that line.
I know.
And when you look at what Kaprizov and Boldy have done, it's been great.
Yeah.
But most of it's come on the power play.
Yeah.
4 points for each of them on the power play out of their 7.
Yeah.
And Rossi isn't getting that number 1 power play time, and yet he's the guy, even when he got pulled off the top line for a shift against Columbus, and then the next shift he's on the second power play group, and he makes the play coming off the bench that leads to a big goal that gets him back in the game. He's the guy that scores the shootout winner. He's the guy that assisted on the Spurgeon power play goal in the LA game when the first power play group couldn't get the zone. Second power play group comes on, and Rossi makes a play to Spurgeon for the power play goal there. He produces in spite of the fact that he seems to be the last guy that gets the opportunity and gets overlooked on that line. And now
I got a question from a fan that was funny. Like, do you think that Yurov's going to be a 1C, or is he just going to be another Rossi? I'm like, if he is half the player Rossi is, the Wild are going to be very happy.
If they have another guy that gets 60 points in that spot without first power play time. Yeah. So I think Rossi's been good, but I think, Boldy and Kaprizov, this is what the Wild have never had throughout their time, is a pair of superstars that when the team can't generate anything, they do. When the team is spinning their wheels, they get a chance on the power play, and it's in the back of the net. Yeah. Kaprizov's 5-on-3 goal, Boldy's 5-on-4 goal. These are the things that for 22 years of Wild hockey, we've watched the other teams have guys like that, where the Wild are all over them, they're dominating the game but can't score, and all of a sudden Kane and Taves get the puck on their stick one time at the other end, and it's in the back of the net. Tarasenko gets one puck on his stick in St. Louis, and it's in the back of the net. Now the Wild have those guys, and that's why the power play's cashed in like it has, and they're superstars. And that's why the Wild had to sign Kirill Kaprizov for whatever Kirill Kaprizov wanted, because if this team's going to go anywhere, they need these two guys. And boy, they have been great. And when you load up the top line, they have to score every night, and so far they have.
Yeah. That contract that Matt Boldy has had, oh my Lord, is that going to age well? It's already aged well.
When you think about,
do you remember when they signed him and fans were questioning it? Like, how do you
remember, and I always say, like, I'm not a big contract guy. I really, I've told the story before. Like, the only time I used to never look.
By the way, that truck that had the reverse on for like 3 minutes reminded me in Chicago when you're like, in your ear, like, test 1 2 1 2 1 2. The entire, I don't know if that came across on here, but there was a truck that had its beeping sound on reversing for like 3 minutes while we were doing the pod.
Yeah, strangely, I didn't even notice it. Yeah. But the point I was going to make is simply that like the I never ever would look at what guys made. It didn't matter to me. It was like, once the roster's set, this is what you have. Yeah. But when Boldy was signed, and I remember same thing when Eriksson Ek was signed, I've always said, like, I'll never second guess a trade or a draft pick or anything, because unless at the time you said, boy, that doesn't make any sense to me. But when they signed Boldy, I was like, this is going to be one of the great deals in the NHL by the time you get to the end of the deal, which is the reverse of like Kaprizov's deal, where when you sign it that by the end of the deal, he might not be worth, very likely isn't going to be worth that money anymore, but you get more than you paid for early. Boldy's was the opposite. I remember thinking, okay, maybe for the first year or 2 years, we're going to look at a guy that, is he really worth $7 million at this point in his career? Yeah. But by the end, it's going to be the most team-friendly contract in the league. I think we might be there already.
Oh, my God.
And Eriksson Ek isn't far behind. No. Those two contracts might be the most bang-for-the-buck deals in the NHL, right up there with the better ones.
I'll never forget I was on the back patio in Karlstad, Sweden with Ek, and I was talking to him about his contract, and I said, do you regret it? And he's like, absolutely not. His quotes were so mature and professional. He's like, I signed it, I make a good living, blah, 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 blah. Boldy, though, on the other hand, I just have this feeling he's like, I think that I'm a little underpaid when I'm making $10 million less than Kaprizov. But the deal here is Kaprizov signed that deal in his year 29, and Boldy, when he is 29, is going to be a UFA. Imagine where the cap's going to be in 4 or 5 years, and how much this guy is going to get. Holy crap!
Yeah, that'll be the life
Wild better start saving now.
Yeah. Yeah,
and by the way, Craig Leopold better realize that he's going to also have to give those those $20 million signing bonuses to Boldy then. So, holy crap!
I think it's at that time. I mean, who knows where we're headed with the cap? But the way it looks like it's going, you're going to be talking about a $25 million a year player.
Oh, easily. I agree with you. We'll be right back on Worst Seats in the House.
It's time for change. Experience better banking and put your financial goals in motion with Royal Credit Union. It's time to get more from your checking account, upgrade your vehicle, or finally build your dream home. Royal offers the financial solutions you need and the advice you can trust to plan for what's next. Better banking is one change away. It's time to switch to Royal Credit Union. Get started at rcu.org/time. Insured by NCUA. Loan subject to credit approval. Equal housing opportunity.
And I want to tell you about Twill in the Edina Galleria. Scott Dayton's Twill in the Edina Galleria. TwillMN.com is the website. I'm wearing my Johnny O hat. I'm wearing one of my many Peter Millar shirts. Johnny O and Peter Millar are two of my favorite brands out of Twill in the Edina Galleria. When I've been going to Wolves games lately, I've been wearing my Dingman shoes. I've been wearing my Brax pants, my either Peter Millar or Johnny O shirts, pullovers. The Wolves games are weird because they're really cold, and then they turn on the fire jets before the game and singe your eyebrows. You need to be prepared for all kinds of different temperatures in that building. And I just use all my Twill stuff. And as we do more shows here at TalkNorth.com on video, I'll be wearing more Twill stuff because it's really simple. I don't always try to look good. Sometimes I'm very happy being a slob, and I wear old sweats and T-shirts. If I'm trying to look presentable in any way, Talk North meetings, sponsor meetings, big games, going out in public, going out to dinner, I just put on something I bought at Twill. It's just that simple. If I put on something I bought at Twill, I'm going to look good. I'm playing a Randy Shaver's golf tournament on Monday. I'm going to wear Twill stuff to that too. Golf, walk around town, dinner, whatever. TwillMN.com. Go to Twill in the Edina Galleria. They're laid back. They love talking sports. They're nice people. Tell them we sent you. You'll have a good time, and you'll end up walking out with something great.
Hey, have you been dreaming of a lake cabin lifestyle with boating, fishing, and family fun in northern Minnesota? Well, lately I've thought a lot about how cool it would be to have a getaway like so many Minnesotans. And if you're like me, you probably think that owning your own lakeside getaway is beyond your budget. Well, if you think lake cabin real estate prices keep going up, well, think again. This is Russo, and I'm here to tell you there is an affordable way to enjoy a cabin lifestyle and all that goes with it. And yes, I said affordable. I founded a Clamshell Beach Resort, which is located on the Whitefish chain of 14 lakes for you and your family to enjoy. Here's how. Clamshell has lake homes that offer deeded fractional ownership, and the keywords there are deeded and fractional. You own it. Imagine having 5 weeks a year to enjoy Clamshell with its beaches, pool, and lodge that's full of kids' activities. Is golf your game? There's a great golf course right across the road. Like winter sports? Well, you can go ice fishing, cross-country skiing, or snowmobiling right out the door at Clamshell. And there's no maintenance, no grass mowing, no snow removal. It's done all for you. And you can own a share of Clamshell Beach Resort at an affordable price. To learn more about ownership opportunities at Clamshell Beach Resort, go to cottagesonwhitefish.com or contact Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. That's cottagesonwhitefish.com or Pat Egan at 612-220-9819.
Back here, Worst Seats in the House. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta, final segment of the show. Anthony, Jacques Lemaire, who looked incredible. Mario Tremblay, Mike Ramsey, Bob Mason, and Doug Riseborough, who also looked incredible. These guys don't age. They don't gain weight. It's very irritating. They came back for opening night. I had a blast watching it. You know, my first... I started covering the team in 2005, and they left in 2009. But the one thing when I was talking to Jacques that I remembered is how much, I've always said I've never played the game, but I've been a sports writer for 31 years, and most of what I've learned covering this game are from the coaches that we get to shoot the breeze with. And I've covered some incredible coaches, Mike Keenan and Terry Murray and Brian Murray and Mike Yo and Bruce Boudreau and obviously Hines and Everson. We've covered so many coaches, Jacques Martin. But when I first got here in 2005, like the amount in those 4 years that I learned from Jacques was priceless. And he's just got this kind of calm way of talking that also is instruction. Like he just earns that respect, and it was just so cool to see him the other day.
Yeah, I agree. I could sit and listen to him talk forever about the game and then about those teams. The 03 run was before you were here, and it was such a magical time because it was a team that caught everybody by surprise, and yet now the more that I've talked to guys from those teams and have become coworkers and friends with guys like Wes Walls and Darby Hendrickson and Brad Bombardier and the guys that were a part of those teams, like they knew it. They had such a trust and a belief in everything they were doing, and it came from Jacques. And I thought he made the comment. I was sitting in the room while the other writers and everybody were interviewing him that morning, and then we had him on during the intermission, and he just made the comment that it's the same no matter what era you're talking about. If you can't get the players to buy in and believe, you're going nowhere, no matter how much talent you have. And that team had a belief, and that team had an identity that maybe more so than any team in the NHL at that time. When you came into the building to play the Minnesota Wild, you knew exactly what you were going to get. You were going to get a team that defended well, that changed better than you, that did all the little things better than you. And that you were going to have to try to beat them 2-1 or 3-2. You were going to have to beat them at their game. It very rarely was a night where the Wild got away from what they did. And I always thought Jacques was great, and I was only doing pre- and post-game shows during those years when he was here, but I always thought was great, and I've talked to Wes about this a lot, that he was great at realizing when things were slipping, when they were winning games but the game was getting loose.
Right.
And the reverse was true as well, when they were losing games but the game was trending in the right direction. And Wes used to use the term like he was great at seeing the storm coming before it hit.
Yeah.
And I always thought like they'd win a game, and you could tell by his comments afterward that he knew we're not playing the game the way we have to play to sustain wins. So even though we won tonight, this was not Wild hockey tonight. Right.
And they definitely didn't see Wild hockey against Columbus.
No.
That game would have given Jacques a heart attack. The one thing also is like, and we've talked about this on the pod the last 3 or 4 years, especially knowing that the 25 years was coming, is that there's a lot to celebrate with this organization. I know a lot of times we all get cynical because they haven't lifted a cup yet, and we talk about first-round exits and all that stuff. But this has been a proud organization. It's been an incredibly well-run organization. They've got an incredibly a loyal fan base and all that stuff. And I think that it's deserved. Like, they should do more of this stuff of bringing guys from yesteryear back. And it was a perfect start, because these guys put the Wild on the map. I mean, Maura Tremblay, one of the funniest and one of the great hockey players that we've seen, and obviously Ramsey had an incredible playing career, and Bob Mason as well. And then Doug Risebrough. I mean, talk about an incredible hockey player. And he comes here, he makes the hire of Jacques, and I was really excited to see him too and to chat with him because I think it's probably a little bit well known, maybe not, that he and I at the end had a falling out after he was let go, and yet he came back, and maybe he just realized, life's too short, and it was like old times, him and I chatting. And I've always had an immense amount of respect for Doug Risebrough. So to see those guys, those 5 on the ice waving to the crowd, it was just so well deserved and really cool to see.
I agree. And as a Minnesota hockey fan, and then a Wild hockey fan during those times, it was really cool. We had a great chance to chat with Jacques during an intermission, and then we had Bob Mason on to start the second period, and it was supposed to be to the first TV timeout, which is the first whistle after 14 minutes. There were so many special teams. We didn't get a TV timeout until there were 6 minutes left in the period.
Right.
So we had him on for 14 minutes instead of 6 of game time, which was actually probably 35, 40 minutes instead of 12.
Right.
But it was great. And one of the things that I said to him is some of my favorite conversations during the time traveling with the Wild were with Bob Mason, Darby Hendrickson, Tom Curvers, guys who had been a part of Minnesota hockey at every level, high school, college, and pro, coaching, playing, and we would sit and just chat about the old range hockey teams that would come down, the U of M against UMD games that were big back in those days, and it was I treasured those times because those guys were all just Darby was a little younger than me, but the other guys were just, it was my era of growing up as a fan in Minnesota hockey. And I love those times and just love to be able to chat and catch up. And Bob Mason's such a terrific guy. So, yeah, it was a great night. Great to see those guys honored. And I actually think the Wild are doing a decent job bringing those guys back. We've with Alex Goligoski, Matt Hendricks now being around the team and a part of it, and I think we'll see more and more of that. We saw Marc-Andre Fleury in the GM's box last night. We're going to see more former Wild players be around this organization.
I thought it was great the other night. To your left, the entire game, Alex Goligoski sitting with David Jiricek and directing traffic and telling him everything. One of my favorite memories of Bob Mason, we were out in L.A. and probably 2010. We're talking 15 years ago. And we were outside the JW Marriott. So you wouldn't have been there yet because you weren't the play-by-play guy. And he's really good friends with the actor John Hawkes, who's from International Falls. And people might know John Hawkes from like Winter's Bone and I think he was in God, what was he in?
I met him another time.
True Detective. He was in 3 Billboards. Anyway, but what was cool is that we're with him this one night, and the next night he was up for either an Academy Award or a Golden Globe for Winter's Bone. And and we just sat with this guy for and we've met him a number of times since. But that was one of my favorite memories of Bob Mason. All right, let's talk just a little bit about the league, and then we got some Twitter questions. Then we'll wrap up the show. Did you, by the way, Vegas looks like Marner and Eichel could be unbelievable. Dorfiev's off to a great start, but did you see the end of that San Jose Vegas game last week? William Eklund's basically going for an empty net goal. Jack Eichel, people made fun of me last year for putting Eichel on my Selke ballot. He makes this unbelievable defensive play that knocked the puck off his stick. Eklund gets the puck back. He's about to wrap around. And now Shea Theodore knocks the puck on his stick. By the way, I have both of them on my Donkey League team, and I get nothing for those. Nothing in my category.
We should really just kind of make an extra. If Russo thinks a guy made a great defensive play, you get a half a point.
And then they come down, and Eichel scores on a bouncing puck. Then in overtime, Nedeljkovic comes out to the blue line, and Shea Theodore pokes it by him, and then Riley Smith scores the easiest overtime winner. I felt so bad for Nedeljkovic that night. It was unbelievable.
Well, I don't know if you feel bad for him, but it was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it was not a good situation. So that was fun. How about the Sabres off to a brutal start? They don't score again.
It's just Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, it's
how many years have you talked to? Is this the year the Sabres take the next step? And then they almost every year they're buried by Christmas.
Yeah, it is funny to me, fans, because I keep on writing about Tage Thompson and Alex Tuch. They keep on, how many losses in a row do the Sabres need before Billy could go get one of them? I will say Billy is looking for some sort of help up front, but right now prices early in the season are crazy. But Sabres off to a really poor start. Tonight's going to be a tough game, obviously. Back-to-backs against a very rested Dallas Stars team that hasn't lost yet in 2 games. What do you expect tonight before we go to Twitter questions?
Well, I think the Wild have got a pretty tough schedule right here because back-to-backs in Dallas. Then you go to Washington, where the Caps are, again, they look exactly like the Caps did last year. They're giving up next to nothing, and in their building, they're tough. And then it's back-to-back in Philly, where I think the Flyers are on the right track. But having to play them on the second of back-to-backs will make that game a challenge.
And the Wild always seem to have wild games.
I know they do. It was last year, remember, that whole road trip at the beginning of the year where they went 5-1-1. The one regulation loss was the Philly game where the Wild outshot them, outchanced them by 85%.
Gus
and yet
was not good that
gave up, I think, he gave up 3 goals on 5 shots or 3 on 6 or something like that?
So I got to think Gus starts in Washington and Volley starts
I would guess. And so I think the Dallas game is going to be a tough one. But these are the kind of games that when you look back, and I know we've joked about play the young guys, whatever. And one of my arguments has been these points early in the year are huge, especially these kind of games. Look right now at what the Wild did in St. Louis. The Blues have gone and won in Calgary. They've won in Vancouver. The fact that the Wild went into their building and spanked them is big. So at the end of the year, don't be surprised if you're looking and saying, all right, well, you're a point or two separated in this spot, and these head-to-head games against teams in your division might be the differentiating factor between whether you're in the playoffs or not, whether you have home ice or not in the first round of the playoffs.
I mean, I know that you could say this over an 82-game season about
every point
myriad
matters.
teams,
Right.
but
early,
like you think about that game in Washington last year.
Right.
If Fleury doesn't glove down Ovi at that last shootout attempt for that incredible gamer, where it's like what you think is their final head-to-head matchup, Wild don't make the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, you could say that over any game,
right?
but,
Exactly.
But,
but I
it's
think
like that
early
simple.
it sets the tone for the season because it allows you. You look at last year, the Wild they were never knocked out of a playoff spot. Even when they had their tough stretch at the end where they lost 7 out of 8, they never relinquished the spot. And it was because they had built up enough of a cushion where the year before, it was just the opposite. They had started so slowly that they even, whatever that stretch was right when Hines took over and they went, I don't remember what the numbers were now. I want to say they went like 12-4 or something like that. But they never climbed. They were fighting uphill the whole way because of the fact they had buried themselves with such a slow start.
Right. A couple Twitter questions, and then we'll wrap up the show. Luke asks, were you as surprised as me to see the third line out there with less than 1 minute and an extra tacker for the Kings? Why not take a timeout and get the first line out there, or at least Eck or Rossi to take the draw? I mean, Hartman's been their best faceoff guy so far. I mean, Foligno's their best defensive forward analytically for years, and Trenyon, I guess I don't know if Trenyon was also on the ice, but
He was.
Yeah, I mean, look.
But that line had been good throughout the night, and Hartman
and Boldy are definitely always out there, but at that time. But I don't really begrudge them. That they should be able to defend that to the end.
That's true, but also remember the Wild had iced the puck like 4 times in a row, and
so you couldn't change
they
it.
couldn't change it, and there wasn't an opportunity to call timeout, and that was Hartman. Last night had a tough night in the faceoff dot, but that was because a lot of it was against Kopitar. But up until then, he had been your best faceoff guy. And it was, if you're going on Kopitar's strong side, that means Hartman's also on his strong side. You want a righty to go up against Kopitar in that spot, and that means Ryan Hartman.
Yep. Eric asked, should the Wild have been more interested in offering Besser a longer-term deal? Power play has been good, but that right shot is still missing. True, but I actually don't think there's anything the Wild could have done to... First of all, I don't think they should have offered him a long-term deal. And I actually don't think the Wild could have done anything. He clearly knew that there was an opportunity to go back to Vancouver, and that's where he wanted to go. So I don't think there's anything the Wild could have done. A lot of people asking about Tarasenko. We discussed that. MNW Young Guns... or MNW Prospects on Twitter, and I'm bringing this up because people should follow this account because whoever runs this account does an incredible job keeping everybody up to date with the prospects that I don't have the bandwidth to do. They ask, it is only juniors at this point, but how high are the Minnesota Wild on Adam Benyek? He's had a heck of a start to his season and looked great in the showcase. I think they're very, very high on him. As you mentioned, it is juniors. It's far from pro hockey level. He is extremely undersized. So, yeah, while they're high on him, we still have to see how he adjusts. But he has done an incredible job. Here's one right up both of our alleys. Sean, this is where we need the restaurant recommendations sound effect. You're going to love this question.
All right.
I'll be heading to Pittsburgh next month to see the Wild. Any restaurant recommendations? We could tell you one not to go to in Pittsburgh.
What's the one not? Oh, yeah.
The one that I lost my
That's right. Don't go
privileges.
there. I don't even think that place is still open.
Well, shocker.
The worst piece of sea bass I've ever had in my life.
That's everybody knows the story. We've told it 1,000 times.
You were banned.
I was banned for an entire year from picking a restaurant after I dragged Greenway and LaPanta to this place.
Go to La Familia. It's about a 15-minute Uber ride out of downtown, but it's a terrific spot. That's kind of a upper end, good chops, good steaks, good Italian. If you're looking for a little more casual, try Pizzola Primo in the Market Square in downtown.
Go there at lunch, right?
Yeah, it's a decent pizza and pasta type place. Yeah, that's a good one. And there's a great little jazz spot if you're looking for music and cocktails afterward. I don't recall the name, but it's right down. I'll have to think about the name, but it's right down in that same area. Pittsburgh it's growing on me, and I was able to spend some time there This last summer, I did a twin series there and was out there when it was warm. And it's really it's an above average downtown area. I love that waterfront, like Riverwalk. There's a great trail down there to run or walk that runs right by the football and baseball stadiums. It's a cool downtown.
Yeah, 05 I covered a Marlins Pirates series there. What a great ballpark that is. And then I've covered 3 Stanley Cup Finals there in the summer, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And one of them, I can't remember if it was 16 or 17, I saw U2 and Lumineers at the football stadium. So, great. Ryan Chemmel asks, how long will they scratch Jiricek before they send him down? I think that's coming if they get out of tonight's game healthy. I got to think he's going down. For both of you, best press meal in the NHL, Anthony?
I have zero opinion because I only eat the press meal in about 4 or 5 cities. I always eat somewhere else because the press meals, I appreciate the fact that the arenas offer a meal there, because there are some cities where, like Chicago, where it's a 20-minute Uber ride, so you can't walk to the rink. But any city in which I can walk to the rink, I eat somewhere else.
Tampa's good.
I never eat in Tampa, ever.
Detroit?
Detroit is not bad, but I rarely eat there. It's they have a buffet that's it's like they
Vegas
have a wide
casino.
variety, but it's just not great food. Chicago's is good, and actually
Chicago.
Dallas. From time to time, Dallas is decent, but we are close enough to the rink here where, because I can walk, I can go eat a better meal somewhere else. So I'd say for me, probably Chicago, Dallas are the 2 that I do eat in the building.
Minnesota's
a fair
improving.
amount. The salad bar is better, so the main courses are not my favorite. But again, Minnesota, I eat there every night because of the fact that I get to the rink at 3:30 on a game day. So it isn't like you have time to go somewhere else. So it's out of convenience. It's appreciated, the fact that they provide you a meal there, and so I don't mean to downplay it, but I'd say Chicago and Dallas are maybe 2 where I do eat at the rink more often than not.
Yeah. So, last one, Edmonton. Good bars around Rogers Place. You and I have gotten to that speakeasy. It's awesome at the JW. Joey's is cool. Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, Sherlock Holmes is the one that's got a local feel to it. That is
Right across from Sherlock Holmes, I don't remember the name of it. It's like a 3 or 4 story bar. Restaurant. It's actually really good.
We had lunch there once. I can't remember the name of it.
There's an Italian place next to Sherlock Holmes too that we've eaten at. That was good.
The Italian place is okay. It's a little overpriced, I think, for what it is. I forget the name of it.
You
but
just will never, ever, ever, ever say something positive about Edmonton. I think that's what it comes down to.
I think Sherlock Holmes is worth a stop because it's a local. I always want to find. I don't like chain places, so I mean, there's a Joey's in every big city in Canada, and to me, it's okay. It's on a game night. It's a good place to stop and have a beer before the game, but it's like a burger sandwich type place. I wouldn't. It's a high end sports bar. Let's put it that way. But there's a good steak. There's actually a decent steak place that's in the Skyway. I think it has a number. Maybe I can't remember what it's called, but it's in the Skyway. That's so you don't have to go outside from our hotel.
Oh yeah, is it 7 or something? It's at the Sutton place, or maybe they changed the name of that hotel.
Yeah, you can get there through the Skyway from the arena.
Yeah,
I think it's something Chop. It's called.
Yes, it's at the Sutton Place Hotel.
Yeah, and that's I had a steak there that was decent.
Actually, I think it's called Sutton Place. It used to be called Sandman or something.
It could be. I don't remember, but the steak place is something Chop. And
the only thing I remember about that was my first draft. It was the 06 Stanley Cup Final. So first Stanley Cup Final that I covered for the Star Tribune, and it was in Edmonton. And they always bring the top prospects in, and we're in this ballroom, and because they're from Minnesota, I was tasked to sit down with Eric Johnson and Phil Kessel for features. And Eric Johnson obviously made it extremely easy. But I remember and again, I'm a veteran hockey writer at this point. I've covered the league 10 years. I'm sitting down with Phil Kessel, and it was one of the toughest interviews that I think I've ever done in my life. I was sweating at the end of it, trying to get him to say anything. And I remember calling my editor up, Mark Walleman at the time, who's now at The Athletic, and I remember so good news and bad news. I can write a kick-ass Eric Johnson feature. But I'm telling you right now, my Phil Kessel feature, he didn't exactly cooperate. So I don't think it was Phil being a jerk. I think it was just, Phil's not the greatest quote. At least at that point, he was not.
Yeah,
so.
Depending on what the subject is.
Yeah.
I thought his quotes were great when he was left off of the Team USA.
Well, he's hilarious.
Yeah.
He's absolutely downright
He's sarcastic.
All right, thanks, Anthony, for coming out to the landing path at Love Field for this podcast. Our next live show is October 27th at Tuttle's. And we will be doing a show next week. I am not on the rest of the road trip, so we will be doing a show next week, either via Zoom or maybe we do it next Thursday when you're back. We'll see. Thanks to our incredible sponsors, Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems, Clamshell Beach Resort, Onyx Maps, Twill in the Edina Galleria, Royal Credit Union, and Stretch Lab. Thanks, everybody.
So much coming out.